Welcome to episode 2 of the Sandbox Podcast, a platform where we learn to lead well with other leaders. It's episode 2. We're so excited. We didn't quit. Let's do it. We are coming to you live from the good land. I'm your host for the day, Tyler Richardson, and we are very pumped that we are coming to you with an episode 2. We were a little fidgety slash paranoid slash fill in the blank, that we were not going to actually complete an episode 2. We were very worried that we would kind of get in the slump of, I call it snoozenitis, where you keep wanting to wake up very early, but the snoozenitis kicks in, and that snooze is just so easily available and bright and orange, and you just keep tapping it. And so the snoozenitis we thought would affect us in our attempts to keep the podcast journey going. But actually I got a handful of feedback from people saying they actually really liked it, which was also something I was not expecting. So maybe I need to get somebody to call me and tell me what a good job I do waking up so I can also do that as well. But we'll find out. In the meantime, we are starting off episode 2 with our first characterization version of the podcast. Now, I need to add some claps effects or something right here. So we'll just do this for the time being, or we'll just kind of keep it because it keeps us indie and organic. Now, what we are going to do in the characters is we're going to find characteristics of leaders that you may find yourself leading with. And we're going to break them down into kids that you would actually run into in the sandbox. The sandbox of our analogies will be the sandbox of your offices, workplaces, teams, organizations, all that kind of stuff. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break down a specific character. Now, again, this isn't a leadership podcast as much as it's a learn how to lead well with other leaders podcast. So this podcast is not about being like, you're this character, you got to stop being this character. No, we're going to break down a character that maybe you have some attributes of, or you work very closely, or you know of, quote unquote, a leader who may have some of these attributes. And some of them, some characteristics may be in more than one character, and there may be several characters that you may relate with or may relate to others. And that's totally fine. The main point we want to do is figuring out a way to spot them and figuring out how to co-lead with them. Not to spot them so we can tattle on them, but to, I wonder how much elementary school verbiage I'm going to use in this, but is not to rat them out. It will be to figure out a way to then learn those nuances of their characteristics so that you can work with that person to co-lead in perfect harmony with them. Not to avoid it with them and not just coexist with them, but to co-lead with them. So today what we're going to do is our first characterization we are going to do is a character on the sandbox, in the sandbox, that I call the big kid. All right. Now, by the big kid, we don't mean the bully. Now, I know it's very easy to kind of relate the two, that the big kid is naturally the bully. In our saga, that is not the case. We're going to talk about a big kid in the sense of a kid who has repeated a grade. All right. Now, I don't know at what point in your life you met a kid who had been held back or had to repeat a grade. Either because he had to miss school a lot because he was sick, or family emergency, or maybe he just goofed off. There's several things that go into it. But one of the first things I think of when I think of the big kid in the sandbox, because he had to repeat a grade, is immediately, wow, I am so envious of this cat because he knows all this stuff. He knows all the math. He knows all the spelling. He knows everything. So he basically gets a free vacation for a year. Like, how sweet is this? And I want to break that down to the characterizations that you may find yourself leading with in the realm of familiarity. All right. I believe that in our teams and everything that we do, there's always something new available. There's always a new innovation, a new technique, a new model, a new way to be fruitful and productive. And it's always available. Something is newly available 5 minutes from now, and 5 days from now, again, there's a new idea. There's something new available for us to bring together in what we do day in, day out with the leaders we lead with and the people we lead. And what's always the wall that blocks us from what is available is always a wall labeled familiarity. And it's usually something in the confines of we've always done it this way. This is what works. This is, or at least this is what's going to work for now. And then we'll figure out a better way to do it. But we got to do something now. So let's just do this for the time being. P.S. That never changes or goes away. So you'd probably need to find a better way to work around that one in particularly. But one of the first things I think of when I think of the big kid in a sandbox is he immediately has two types of viewpoints toward him. One viewpoint is one kid may go, I need to really get in close with the big kid. I can be his minion, his henchman. I can be the one that, takes care of all his deeds and stuff. So that way he'll be my buddy and everybody will esteem me to be awesome because they esteem the big kid to be awesome. Or there's another viewpoint where another kid may look at him and go, I'm not going to have anything to do with this guy. He's the old news. What can you learn from somebody who's been held back? I'm the future. He's old news. I'm going to just create my own little micro sandbox kingdom inside another micro sandbox kingdom. So then he may grab half the kids in the sandbox and be like, we don't want to play sandcastle. We want to play forts. And so the cycle goes, and then here are all the people trying to be split between, well, I don't know, yesterday we played forts and now I want to play something different. Then it just gets very tricky. Now, what happens is familiarity breeds a very strong confidence. It brings forth a very strong attitude of, I know how this works. I know how this boss operates. I know how the board of directors operates. I know how the staff beneath us operate. I know how our accountants work. I know how our designers work. I know all these things. And what happens is you equally have people in teams and workplaces who will have those two viewpoints. One group will basically do almost a kiss up attitude or a way too strong adoration that's just not properly monitored towards those people, and they're like, well, I want to be successful, and if nothing else, they're here just because they've been here a very long time, and that in itself has created for them some level of respect and success. And so if I just kind of ride the coattails of their ladder rising, then maybe some of that will rub off on me. And then the other viewpoint by other people and other leaders is, well, I'm just going to create something new. I'm going to create something fresh, because just because you've been here for 20 years doesn't mean you've done anything. And I know how to get things done. So then the battle again begins to repeat itself through life and through scenarios. And then you just find yourself kind of caught in the web. And one thing I think we really want to approach is familiarity is not the enemy of what's available. But familiarity is something you have to crawl over to get to what's available. Because if you don't have that attitude, then what you're going to do is we're going to find ourselves with teams and organizations where we have like all 12-year-olds and anybody under 47 is sent to the mailroom. Well, that's obviously not going to work, because as much as we may feel like we're getting something new, we don't have anything sustaining. And you need familiarity to understand it is why we do what we do, not just how, not just, pardon, that's my wife texting me. Let me just check it, make sure she's not dead. The traffic is bad. She's on her way to rehearsal. I'm going to keep this on silent while I keep talking, but thank you for dealing with that. Yes, so it's not just about the how, it's about the why. I want you to think about it like this. Imagine that somebody goes to college late, and let's say they're 19. They waited a year and now they're going to college when they're 19. And then there is somebody that is really into dual enrollment and all that kind of stuff, and they're 17 and they go to college. Now you have a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old going to their first year of college for the first time. They are both, even though one is older and one is younger, they are both walking into a ground that they do not have familiarity on. A lot of times what's the easiest thing to do to break down familiarity is to equal it to something of age only, and it's not. It's about being familiar in those circumstances. That 19-year-old can be 21, go to that college for 2 years, transfer to another college, and a sophomore there at that college that's already been there is now the big kid on that college campus even though the one transfer student is older, because it's not about age and it's not even necessarily about know-how. It's about the familiarity of the atmosphere and the whereabouts of the organization and the teamwork and the building and all the nuts and bolts that make that happen. More likely than not, you're already trying to come up with ways to move forward into new things. But you've got people that you lead alongside who don't want to be counted out. And the way they make sure that they do not get counted out is because they keep things the same. And you're an enemy of them keeping things the same. And a lot of times people don't want to keep themselves familiar because they love what they're familiar with. They want to keep things familiar because they want to count. What you'll find out the more you lead with other people is everybody just wants to count. If there's a big kid in the sandbox and you want to be friends with them, it's because you want somebody to think you count by association. If you don't want to hang with the big kid, you want to count by proving that you can do your own thing. And the big kid just wants to count in his own right. Everybody just wants to count. So I think for all of us, a lesson for all of us to learn is finding a way to make everybody count. People who are familiar have so much wisdom to share, not just on how things work, but truly how to get to what's available quicker. You may be able to spot what's available, but since they know how things work, they know how to get you there without driving yourself crazy, working 19 hours a day and never sleeping and never turning off your phone and all this kind of stuff. You need all of that to get to what's new. Now, all of that being said, it's imperative for all of us to learn that we cannot let what is familiar keep us from what is available. We cannot let what is familiar keep us from what is available. Now, when I say what's familiar, I don't mean the person that's familiar. I mean the ideas, the boxes in our imaginations and in our subconsciouses, those familiarities. Don't let those keep you from the new things that are available. Now, that being said, I think the hardest part in all of this to really grasp and to understand is that everything that is now familiar was at one time newly available. And everything that is newly available, once we obtain it, it will eventually become something that's familiar. So here we come, our two-test logic time. Now, so that means for those of us who are familiar to the things around us and how protocols work and all that kind of stuff, there's a test for us, for those around us, to be able to use our familiarity to be weapons in their hands to push all of us forward, to do something awesome and to obtain something new that's available but never yet reached. And those of us who are all about the new, our test is to figure out how to properly honor those that are familiar to reach what is available better, more efficient, more healthy, and figure out how to even make it last longer. So what is familiar is not just wasted, but truly effective and fruitful and productive for all of us in the best humanly way possible. Now, that will wrap up everything for episode 2 for us today on the episode characterizing the big kid. Not the old kid, not the bully, but the one who is most familiar. So both you and I, let's learn whether we're the big kid's friends, or those of us trying to avoid the big kid. Let's all not allow ourselves to let what is familiar keep us from what is available. It's not about coexisting, it's about co-leading. And together we can do it with flying colors. So be sure to keep up with us. We got a lot of exciting things coming up your way. Check us out at wezealots.com, wezealots.com, and we will all try our best to learn how to play nice in the sandbox, baby.